Everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Sahara Omar. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing here in the state of Texas. And today's video is a topic I continuously see in my private practice with individuals that are working on themselves and healing. They're single or they recently left a long-term or marriage relationships, and they are openly interested in exploring and wanting to know a little bit more about what is out there and how do I find my significant other, the person I'm meant to be with. There's a couple of things that I want to first debunk before I share with you guys this acronym that I use in my work with my clients. First, a lot of myth that we have in our culture is rooted in we attract people as if there is this magnet thing that happens where we have no control over things. That is not true. That's false, right? We don't attract, we say yes to people, right? Like we are making an active choice. Now, there's a video I made on choices and I highly encourage you guys to go back. The question becomes, are you choosing cognitively, like consciously, or are you choosing unconsciously, right? Our culture here in the States is very fascinated when we are looking at it from a perspective of like mythology and fairy tales, because that's how we are taught from movies and music that we listen to in general. There's this sense of like, oh wow, love just happened to us and people are just constantly attracted to us. No, that's false narrative, and I want to challenge you guys to reflect on it from that perspective and lean into, are you choosing actively the right person for yourself, or are you making unconscious choices and then blaming it on this false attraction? Okay, so when we talk about dating, there's a difference between first chemistry and compatibility, and those are two words that also I see a lot of mix up. Chemistry is an energy, right? Like sometimes it comes and goes. You have connections with people based on how well they understand your jokes, for example, and how much they understand your personal experiences. We all have chemistry with things like, for example, different relationships, right? Like whether it's like having a good relationship with your dad and mom or siblings or friends, we all can have that click, right? Like that alignment in the sense of you understand me and I understand you, and we call that just chemistry, right? However, compatibility, on the other hand, it is a serious step-by-step direction where you are assessing situations and relationships based on how well are you aligning with this person on a romantic relationship. And sometimes I would even say outside of the only thing that's different from a romantic relationship and a platonic relationship is the sexual component, right? So if we remove the sexual component, even in your friendship, are you also assessing correctly? Are you asking yourself, is this person I'm compatible with to grow with life, essentially, okay? I really like this acronym. I call it SERIOUS or for serious relationship, which is SERIS. You want to address all of these 5 components where you're dealing with potential love interest outside of just seeing the chemistry. If it's there and that connection, you do want to ask yourselves these difficult questions. And a lot of my clients, when they come to therapy, that is the biggest hurdle that they overcome, right? Is learning how to slow down and ask difficult questions before you make that final decision. I do want to also, before I dissect this with you guys, most of the people who do not use compatibility and just lean into chemistry fall in love very fast, right? So there is this sense of like rapidness, like love bombing experience of like, I just met this person 3 days ago, or I just met this person a week ago and I love them. No, you don't love them. You just have intense infatuation with them where your fantasy is taking over the reality versus just staying in reality. Okay, so just I want you guys to also pay attention to that component. So going back to the acronym or serious relationship, you do want to first address any spiritual compatibilities. Do you both worship the same God? Do you share the same core beliefs about who God is and what He does in this life? A lot of couples, when I work with couples, the things that I always assess are these 5 things, right? Like this will help determine if the relationship is going to function, for how long, right? Because you don't want in a romantic relationship to have a lot of chaos, right? Like life is already chaos. You don't want that in your personal life. So your core beliefs around spirituality, who God is, do you believe who he is, and how do you see him? How does he speak to you, and what do you believe about who he is, his character as well? Okay. Then other questions to also consider is, how often do you want to attend religious or spiritual practices? I met so many couples who one person is so emotionally and spiritually devoted to God. Another one is like, nah, I just get to see him once a week, maybe once a month, right? And that will be a core misalignment, right? Like your value are not the same there. Also, what role does faith play in your daily lives and decisions that you're making, right? Sometimes some people who are very spiritual lean into, I have to consult with God first before I make any decision. And other people believe, no, I get to make a decision. I have free will. I don't have to always consult with God, right? So sometimes just understanding how that role looks like for each one of you. And then, how do we want to raise our children spiritually, right? How soon do you want to introduce God to them, right? Some parents would say right away, like, I want to introduce God to them from the day that they're born. Like, I want to pray over them, make sure that they know who he is. Others are like, no, we wait until they're 5 or 10, right? So again, no right or wrong answer. It's more of, do you both, you and your potential partner, agree in these things, okay? How often, also, are we open to grow, or are you open to growing together in your faith journey, right? Sometimes people have expectations. My relationship with God is for me and him. It has nothing to do with my partner. And sometimes others have the expectation, no, we are both serving God, or we both are in alignment in that way. So we both have to grow together and talk to each other about the growth that we're experiencing on an individual level and even as a couple, okay? Again, those are just basic questions that I just want to give you guys a little bit of heads up, so that way you are interested a little bit more and you can ask yourself these questions before you jump into the dating scene if you are single, okay? Also, addressing any emotional compatibility, right? When we talk about emotional compatibility, I just want you guys to think of, can I express my emotions and how am I feeling about certain topics without feeling belittled, dismissed, or mocked, right? So questions around emotional compatibility could be, how do we handle conflict? Do we feel emotionally safe with each other during a disagreement, right? Or do we feel like, oh my God, a lot of anxiety is coming up, or a lot of fear is coming up? Can we be vulnerable and express our feelings without fear or judgment or dismissal? This is something that shows up a lot in couples therapy, when one person divulged to their partner something traumatic that happened to them, or they witnessed or experienced, and all of a sudden their partner uses that as a weapon, right? Like, so weaponizing the vulnerability in itself, where now it doesn't feel safe to self-express anymore, right? That's not okay. And also, do we feel emotionally supported, seen, or validated by one another, right? So it goes back down to, do I feel like in this relationship my partner understands me, and I feel like I don't have to over explain myself and overshare things, like constantly feeling like I have to be seen, like working so hard to be seen in that way as well too. Typically that tells me there is no emotional compatibility there, because one person is trying to get the other person to be seen by them, right? That's working too much. Also, another one to consider is recreational compatibility. Recreationally, do you guys like to do the same things, right? Like, do you like to, if one of you is extroverted and the other one is introverted, you're not aligned, right? So how do you work through finding that middle class, or middle space, ground where you're able to address each other's hobbies without feeling like you have to clash about it, right? So for example, do you enjoy spending free time in similar ways, right? Or does your hobbies clash, like I said, right? Argue about, why do you always have to go golf with your friends when I'm here, right? You're not compatible recreationally. Can your partner have those hobbies without you reinforcing them to let go of that hobby, right? Can you also have fun together during everyday things, right? Like even getting your errands done, going to the grocery store, right? Like going to a new restaurant, just doing everyday things, right? Like, can you have fun with each other, or does it feel like, oh wow, I'm bored, or I'm uninterested, or one person feeling like the need to hurry somebody else up, right? That typically says recreationally you're not aligned there. Also, the last question there is, do we both value adventure or rest or variety in your downtime, right? So sometimes some seasons, right, like in a long-term relationships, one person is a little bit more adventurous. It's like, let's go try this restaurant, let's go try this activity. And the other one is like, no, I'm actually resting and I want some time alone, right? So right there, you may not be recreationally compatible for that season. Can you work through it and allow yourself to feel that emotion that has come up for you without feeling like you have to correct it, right? And then intellectual compatibility. A lot of people identify themselves as, like, for example, sapiosexual. Sapiosexual just means I find attraction towards a partner who's intellectual, right? Can we have these deeper philosophical conversations without feeling like, oh wow, I have to argue here, or I have to find myself fighting for to be seen in this conversation as well, right? So some questions to consider when you are assessing intellectual compatibility is, can we engage in deep, meaningful conversation, or do we often feel misunderstood, right? Like where you have to over-explain and overshare, well, that's not what I meant, or that's not what it is, right? Like that's you trying to get your person to see you on an intellectual level there. Do we also enjoy learning from each other and being mentally stimulated together, right? Not everyone is going to be an expert in all topics of life. Every one of us have like a little bit of interest here and there in certain topics, and your partner could be either intellectually compatible where they have the same interest, right? So when I work with couples who do the same thing career-wise, like let's say they both are doctors or they both are lawyers, typically they're going to be intellectually compatible because they are doing the same thing, even though if it is differences in the nuances within the field, right? There's a little bit of more like, oh, we do the same thing here, right? But typically, even when you do the same thing, can you still have these conversations and be curious about each other's work and what you're doing and learning, and have these conversations on that deeper level as well. Also, outside of the curiosity, as far as like the learning from each other, are you also curious about each other's ideas, thoughts, and perspective, even when we disagree, right? Like even so topics like politics, which is the next bullet point there, but usually I see a lot topics around like politics and finances fall into this intellectual compatibility, by the way. Do you agree on certain things? And even when you don't agree, can you work through it to agree to disagree? Or does it feel like, no, you have to change and you have to be the same way I think and be, right? Typically that tells us there is no intellectual compatibility there. And then the last one is, do we share similar views on major life topics like politics, philosophy, finances, and even culture, right? So couples, for example, who are aligned in these areas, typically they go far in life with less chaos and less conflict in their relationships, right? Versus couples who are completely opposite of each other. Also, there's another narrative in our culture: opposite attract and opposite complete each other. In certain situations, they can complete each other, but majority of what we see in the therapy space is that's not true, right? Like the differences is so vast that the brain sometimes is not willing to bend, and that causes more conflict in the relationship. So it's better when you are assessing from the beginning, before you get married, before you commit yourself to people, to ask these difficult questions up front, so that way you know you are aligned on some of these beliefs. And then the last one is sexual compatibility. With sexual compatibility, it's not about just having sex and what does that look like, right? It's more of also, can you talk through what your expectations and desires and wishes are without right away performing, right? Like without right away acting on any sexual desires there. So some of the questions to consider also is, do we have similar sex drives or expectations around intimacy? Sometimes one person is like, I want to experience a sexual encounter 3 or 4 times a week. Another one is like, no, I'm good with one, right? So automatically you're not sexually compatible. Your sexual drives are not compatible there. Also, are we able to communicate openly and safely about our sexual needs, desires, fantasies, and also boundaries, right? Without feeling ridiculed, judged, dismissed, or made fun of, right? And then the last one is to also consider is how important is sex in your relationship, not to you as a person, but to you as a couple, right? Sometimes people would say, like, some of my clients would say, I have to, our sex is the thing that keeps us together, for example, or it is the one area where we feel super connected because we both enjoy the act itself, right? So another times couples would say that's not how we connect. We connect on an emotional level or on an intellectual level or even on a spiritual level, and sex is another thing that we experience together, but it's not that important, right? So again, it's not right or wrong. It goes back down to what is important to you and how do you feel about it, right? So if you're single, before you go into dating in general, you want to address this within yourself. Do you have the answer to these questions before you date, or are you trying to figure out the answers as you're dating with people, right? I highly encourage to do the work before you meet people, because sometimes in that process emotions take over. Oxytocin is real, dopamine is real. These are chemicals that you cannot control as much as you think you can, right? And you don't want to fall for people or experience intense emotional connection with people that you're not emotionally and recreationally and all of these compatibility areas are not aligned as well too, right? So my biggest recommendation is always do the work first, get to know yourself first, answer these questions for yourself, and then see if you can date and create those serious relationships. I've also met, and this is me just, I'm trying to be fair on all perspectives. I also met people that would say, I don't know the answer to these questions. I never experienced love. I haven't experienced relationships. What's wrong with just dating and then getting to know myself? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that as well. The other piece to that is just be prepared to the pain that you could experience, because when you are falling in love with someone and then you're breaking up and then doing that cycle over and over again, all you're doing is you're releasing dopamine and then you withdrawing again, and then you're releasing dopamine and then you withdrawing. So prepare your psyche and your mental health in general to experience constant withdrawals if you're not taking the serious step to relationships as well too. So again, not right or wrong. It's just what season are you in? What are you learning about yourself? How much do you know about yourself? And what are you willing to experience in this life? The older we get, I usually recommend leaning to the compatibility pattern. The younger that we are, sometimes because the illusion of time, we might feel like we have time to date and get to know people. But I highly encourage your younger years are equally valuable. You don't want to waste time as well too. So just keep reflecting on these areas, and eventually you'll get to a place where you know the answer and you feel comfortable. Alrighty, I hope you guys liked the video. Feel free to hit that thumbs up. Also feel free to comment and share this with video with other people as well too. And I also want to hear from you guys a little bit more. Let me know, what areas are you understanding about yourself? What areas are you still struggling? Even if you are in a romantic relationship, the work never ends, right? So we still have to self-reflect and ask ourselves, what areas are we not compatible and what are we doing about it? Alrighty, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.